Welcome to the EW Podcast. Today's episode is a special collaboration with Big Brothers Big Sisters of San Diego County. In this episode, I discuss the program and the effects of the stay-at-home orders with 3 different individuals involved with Big Brothers Big Sisters here in San Diego. Part 1 of this episode features a conversation with Lorie Zapf. Lorie is the CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters of San Diego County and a former councilwoman here in San Diego. Lorie and I spend our time discussing the current state of the program during the lockdown and what the future might hold as we come out of it. Part 2 is all about the mental health effects of both social isolation and mentorship on children. For Part 2, I speak with psychologist Dr. Becca Hadar. And in Part 3, I speak with current Big Julius Johnson about the specific challenges facing his relationship during lockdown and how he and his little have made the most of an otherwise lousy situation. I'm very grateful to have had the opportunity to share time with all 3 of today's interviewees. Each conversation has helped me better manage and grow my own relationship with my little during this time, and if you're already involved with the program, I hope this episode does the same for you. If you're not involved with the program, but after listening become intrigued, I would highly recommend finding your local chapter online and consider applying, as the need for mentors is always high. You can also double back and listen to episode 16 of this podcast to hear a conversation I had with Ryan Landis, a community outreach specialist for Big Brothers Big Sisters San Diego. We spend about an hour or so in that episode discussing the ins and outs of the program, and I think that would be a good follow-up to this episode for anyone who wants to hear more. So, without further ado, here's part 1 of today's episode with Lorie Zapf, CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters of San Diego County. So thank you for joining me, Lorie. I appreciate you taking the time to talk about Big Brothers Big Sisters.
Thank you for having me. Absolutely.
Who are the littles in the Big Brothers Big Sisters program, and what are some common challenges that kids face that lead them to be signed up?
Right. Well, Big Brothers Big Sisters is one-on-one mentoring, one big and one little. And there are numerous studies that show that it's that one-on-one personal relationship that really has the biggest impact on a child. The organization nationally has been around for over 100 years. Right here in San Diego, this is its 59th year. So thousands and thousands of children have been helped through the one-on-one mentoring. About 60% single family. Close to 20% actually have a family member, active military, or somehow involved in the military, about 10% an incarcerated parent. And so these kids, a lot of them have experienced a lot of childhood adversity, a lot of childhood traumas, like 1 or more traumas. And in general, they come to us with a higher level of fear and anxiety than just the general population. So right now, the Big Brother, Big Sister is that stable, consistent presence in their life. Somebody who is there by their side, they can talk through their fears, their anxieties. Somebody, outside of their immediate chaos that's happening in their life, that they can rely on, a trusted adult. So, we're finding ourselves right now kind of at the front lines of this mental health crisis that is escalating right before our eyes with what's going on.
Yeah, it is a very strange time for everyone, not just children who are at risk or their families, but, I'm feeling it too. I'm feeling the pressure too, and I'm sure you can relate to that.
Absolutely.
So under normal circumstances, what does an ideal match look like? How does that develop? What kind of resource is the big for the little in a normal scenario?
Typically, what we see are, the family members come in, they get interviewed, the kids get interviewed, they go through a very lengthy process, both written, the family members and the kids, trying to find out everything about their background. And then on the other end, we have the the bigs that we're recruiting. We're trying to get more volunteers. So we're out there throughout the county, holding events and trying to, word of mouth is really big, bringing in volunteer mentors. And they go through also a rigorous process. From the orientation session, if they want to move forward, there's, again, a lot of surveying, interviews, background checks, a lot of background checks, because we're dealing with kids. And then if they continue to move through, what happens is the two of them kind of get closer and closer together until they're both accepted into the program. We have staff that pour through their interests, and it's kind of like match.com. We're trying to figure out what's the best match that'll be the most successful for these two kids, for the kid and the adult. And then once they're matched and come together, they're turned over to what we call our match support team, a match support specialist. And they have anywhere from 70 to 80 matches that they support, and they're constantly checking in with them. How are things going? They're a resource. We, as an agency, provide a lot of ideas and resources. We're always out there asking businesses like for gift cards or, buy one, get one free deals. We don't want it to be an onerous thing on the volunteer. But let me tell you, the thing that the kids say that they value the most is just the time with their big. It doesn't have to be, going to Disneyland. It can be going for a hike. Mm-hmm. It can be the big coming and cheering them on at soccer or walking the dog, or, just somebody there who they can turn to and always have that lifeline, the text or the phone call. And that's what, that's what really is valuable. And we have a pretty long retaining, we try and retain the bigs, keep them together as long as possible. And if you can keep a big and a little together for a minimum of 18 months, that's where the real impacts start showing, where the kids are, 47% less likely to use drugs, 52% less likely to skip school and go on to college. For whatever reason, that year and a half is a really important benchmark. And ours are actually over 2 years on average. So, we do a really good job of getting committed bigs in there. Well, and the bigs are doing a good job of staying. I guess that it's all them. If we don't have bigs, we don't have a program.
Right. How has the coronavirus then impacted these relationships and how they're permitted to develop? Obviously, the bigs and the littles cannot get together to spend time together, so everything's moved virtually. How has that impacted how these relationships kind of exist?
Well, there's the good and bad with everything, right? And so a lot of these really low income families don't have the internet and all of the tools, virtual tools, to be able to do that. So, but they do have phones, and a lot of them actually do, are able to text and have access to some of these virtual tools. But I'll tell you, our bigs have really stepped up, and our staff immediately, we just started, how do we get them virtually connected? Like we are right now. They're doing that, and there's like so many cool things that they're doing. They're like doing jump shot challenges, and they're video. They're doing it live. They're not videotaping it. I'm old. They're doing live, activities together. We have a staff member dedicated to bringing on as many resources. That match support team is constantly reaching out to the families, the bigs, and we're trying to keep them connected. What was really surprising to me was on one of our Zoom staff staff calls, one of our staff members said that one of the bigs reported that they're actually in more contact than ever before, because they're not just waiting for the personal get together. They're doing all kinds of cool, creative, fun things and seeing each other and talking, and their conversations are long. And actually staff members helping the families out as well as a resource on, where to get food. I mean, think about it. 70+% of our kids got their meals at school, and the schools are closed. So we've become like a real, not just mental health and socially connected resource, but a resource for all kinds of things that the families need.
I can definitely relate to the being more in touch with the little during this time. It seems like I'm keeping up way more contact with my little just on a weekly basis. We talk and hang out once a week as opposed to maybe once every other week, because you want to be there for the little, and it's also a little bit easier even to just hop on the internet and hang out and play a game or watch a Netflix video or something like that. So it's interesting time.
Interesting times. I think that this is, you've been reading a lot about it. Even this morning, I was reading an article about how a lot of people are realizing, employers and employees, that you can be very productive at home and, help the environment and help your sanity by not being out in the road rage traffic and so forth. But I think this is going to be one of those watershed moments where a lot of us are seeing how we can stay connected, even though we're not physically together. And I think that to me is one of the unfortunate things that happen. We're saying stay socially distant, but really we need to be socially connected, but physically distancing ourselves, right? Physically, but socially more connected than ever. In fact, there's so many studies that show that actual more social interaction, more connectivity is really good for, these children that we're talking about, for seniors, for a lot of people. And it's the social distancing that is causing that depression and isolation. And it's really bad for a lot of people. So, unfortunately, someone started this social distancing instead of physical. So we have to kind of be at the forefront of turning that around.
Do you foresee the virtual aspect of the matches kind of being something that you encourage and continue into the future, even after the physical distancing is over?
I do. We have to remember that Big Brothers Big Sisters is a national organization, and they're based, the headquarters is in Florida. There's 250 chapters. We're one of the bigger ones here in San Diego. So there are guidelines, but I can see already that the national, level is seeing, hey, we can actually connect. And because before they were really about one-on-one in person all the time. And the problem I'm seeing with that is that when we have our headquarters, which we are in City Heights, our circumference, we have fewer and fewer that we can serve as we go out from City Heights. So we're serving the whole county. But if we can't get up into San Marcos and Vista or Fallbrook, we could have a lot more interaction and be able to serve kids a lot further out from the city. So I'm seeing the rules starting to loosen up when we realize that, we can make this work. And of course, the one-on-one interaction is critical, but it doesn't have to be only that. It can be a hybrid mix. And I see us moving in that direction, which I think is a really good thing.
Are there any other long-term effects on the program that you are anticipating from coronavirus and the quarantine? Does Big Brothers Big Sisters look at all different on the other side of this?
Well, yes, I think that, I'm, as the CEO here in San Diego, I've been a big advocate for a lot more social media marketing awareness. And so right now I'm seeing that Big Brothers Big Sisters can go to the next level. I think that we can get a little bit more involved in with volunteers that are willing to go that extra mile and get trained more, because we have that trauma-informed care that is really important. We've got already before COVID, we have a rise in youth homelessness, suicide rates going up, drug use going up. We have a lot of triggers out there that are making it difficult for our children to have a good, healthy, both mental, physical, healthy lifestyle. And so I think that we are actually more relevant and more important than ever. And my goal is to really use this technology to reach out to more big volunteers. I see this as a great opportunity for us to kind of go to the next level.
So it's almost an opportunity for the program to expand and draw new interest in what you're doing.
I think that's a really good way to look at it. We can expand and have more partnerships, more collaborations with complementary agencies and with the county that deals with the mental health and homelessness and incarceration. If kids are making it through school and going to high school and going on to college, they're not on the track to go to prison. They're not in the juvenile justice system. And so we actually have a huge impact on having kids go into a different trajectory of life. And every single kid that does that is a child who becomes an adult who's not going to be on the streets, who's not going to be in social services. And really it behooves the whole community. It helps, the whole community to have a productive member of society. Yeah. And the more that we can get to, the more numbers we can impact, the greater the impact to the community at large, really.
So this podcast is going to be marketed towards bigs mostly who are currently in the program, but we might have some listeners who are not involved in the program or who want to get involved. How can these people get involved with Big Brothers Big Sisters right now?
Well, I would say our biggest need is for more volunteers, for more bigs, and the commitment is really small, actually. The minimum commitment. Most of our bigs do a lot more, but we ask for 2 outings in person a month, at least 2 hours each, and to be there, in between. And so, if you think that is something that you might be interested in, we have a lot of orientation sessions. One of the things I'm hoping is we do more of them online virtually, so we can do a lot more orientation sessions. But look us up on the website on our next orientation sessions, and just come check it out and have all your questions answered. You can move forward or not after that. But I would say that right now we have a long waiting list of littles, and we need more bigs to step up. So if you're touched by that and think that you might be interested, at least check it out.
So you're currently accepting applications for new bigs and currently still going through the process of background checks and the pairing.
We are still moving things forward. When this hit, we had a lot of bigs, in the pipeline that we were doing background checks and interviews, and we're still going through with all of that. And we are bringing in more bigs. And so we can still interview and we can still do a lot of the background checks and interviews and all that. So yes, absolutely. The numbers have dropped, obviously, but we are still out there. And one reason we're doing this awareness campaign is just that reason, is to hopefully bring in some more big volunteers.
Cool. So I have one more question. This time flies by every time I do one of these. It seems to go so fast. So let's just end this with, what kind of advice do you have for bigs who are eager to make the most of this situation and deepen their connection with their match?
I would say that right now, big volunteers are a huge blessing. You really are a lifeline to these kids and these families. We've been hearing stories from my staff members, and one of them was in tears, just how, these families are suffering and these kids are scared and they don't know, what to make of things. And so you're just more important than ever before. And so we can't thank you enough, because like I said earlier, without bigs, we do not have a program, and you're changing kids' lives forever into the future. As somebody who was one of those kids, me, I know how valuable a mentor is. There was not a big brother, big sister, but I did have a foster mom who was my mentor, and my childhood was very low income. Single parent. Mom was a severe alcoholic. My life was scary, fearful. My brother, sister, and I, we lived in a 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment. And coming home was not where we wanted to be. I wanted to be at school with my friends. And that was my life. And I can't imagine what it would have been like in a situation like this, having to be trapped in, the apartment that we were in. And so my foster mom was my mentor and really showed me a whole different life, and that I had a life beyond the circumstances that I was in. And she helped me get into school, education, professional success. And so I'm one of those kids. And so I know 100% that you guys are making a huge difference.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Lorie. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, just a big thank you. And I just want people to know this is just about bringing about awareness. No cost to participate. If you can just get everybody out there, what we're asking is that you get out and walk in your neighborhood, you take a selfie or a video and you post it on your social media, tag us on so we can post everything. And we're just hoping to start a big trend and have this the first annual because May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and this is not going to go away for a long time. We're going to have long, lingering aftermath from this pandemic, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you for joining me, Lorie. Now let's move on to the second conversation of today's episode with Dr. Becca Hadar. Here we talk about the effects on children of social isolation and mentorship. I'm here with Dr. Becca Hadar. Thank you for joining me.
My pleasure.
Appreciate you taking the time to answer some questions about the Big Brothers, Big Sisters program. So under normal circumstances, we're obviously in a very different time, but under normal circumstances, how can mentorship benefit children?
Well, mentorship is hugely beneficial to children and teens. And I don't know if you have heard or your listeners have heard of the ACEs study, which was conducted in partnership with Kaiser Permanente. And it's the largest study of its kind. And it was looking at what are called adverse childhood experiences. And this can range from anything from, serious injury to parental divorce, mental health issues. And what the study looked at was how many adverse experiences somebody had in childhood and how well they did as an adult. And we found that people who had one or two adverse experiences did okay, but obviously the more that you had, the greater risk for later problems with health in adulthood. But the silver lining of this study was that it found that the number one predictor of how well someone did was the number of supportive adults they had in their life as children. So we know that this is a really exciting finding because it means that we can really make a difference in children and teens' lives by linking them to mentorship, whether it's through, sports, academics, or programs like Big Brothers and Big Sisters.
Is the relationship beneficial to the children because they have someone to talk about these problems with, or is it more so just having the role model in their life?
I would say both. I think we just know that children benefit when they have multiple supportive adults in their life. So, we all want to have a good parent figure or two, but, whether you have a large extended family or, other mentors in your life, we just know that this is the number one predictor of how resilient people will be to get through difficult times. And I think we can kind of think that makes sense to us thinking about, our own childhoods and our own lives. Like if you had another person that could maybe cheer you on when you were feeling annoyed with your parents or could offer you another perspective, it was probably really helpful.
Mm. What about in a different time that like the one we find ourselves in with the coronavirus? How can a mentor, let's just apply what we've been talking about to this specific time. How can a mentor be beneficial in this time?
I mean, again, I think hugely beneficial because right now what we're seeing because of our shelter at home orders is that one, kids aren't in school. And school is such a huge part of a child's social outlet. It's where we see most of our friends all day. We interact with other, supportive adults, hopefully throughout the day. And without having that, mentorship is a great way to kind of supplement the kind of supports that they would normally get every day while going to school.
What areas of specific concern do you have when considering how social isolation is impacting children? Is there a difference in short-term effects and long-term effects? What does the effect of this time look like potentially on children?
Unfortunately, and maybe fortunately, we don't really know what the long-term effects will be. I say fortunately because we haven't had to go through this before. So, some people kind of look at this as a giant experiment that we're going through, and we will have to wait and see if there are any long-term effects. I'm an optimist and a glass half full kind of person, and so I think I think unless you're talking about families where there's, abuse or neglect or maybe some severe mental health issues, for the most part, I think we'll all come out of this, having learned some valuable lessons, right? So remembering like the importance of closeness to family, and that we are all doing something right now that feels hard, but is for the benefit of the greater good. And so I'm hopeful that the long-term effects will be neutral to maybe even positive, but we don't really know. In terms of the short-term effects that we're dealing with right now, like I mentioned earlier, I'm a parent myself, so I can definitely see that, there's an increase in irritability or crankiness, crabbiness, sadness, anxiety in our kids because, like us, their lives have been turned upside down. And, what the routines that they had before this started are gone or altered significantly. And we know that children just thrive when they have consistency and routine. So it's pretty typical to see that, that you see that kind of increase in, irritability.
From your understanding, does it seem like kids are typically accepting and aware of what the situation is right now and why they have to do what they have to do? Or is there a certain age of children that is more likely to be able to process that?
It's interesting because we have like a really wide range, and a big part of it depends on the adults in their lives and how they're talking to them about it. So, but we also see how developmental factors play a part in how kids and teens make sense of what's going on, right? So I can give you an example. In my family, my son is 5. And so he's old enough that we've told him that there's germs out there and that we're all staying home because we want to keep people safe. And that's the, best way to keep ourselves safe and to help other people. And so he knows about it, but we didn't go into too much detail. And he is disappointed that he's missing school and he misses his friends, but he doesn't feel overly anxious. I think as kids get a little bit older, their ability to engage in abstract thinking increases. And so then they're able to kind of go into all the same worries that we might go into as adults. What if I get it? What if somebody I care about gets this? When will this end? How will this end? How will life be different, when this is over? So I think in those kind of like, older elementary, middle school to high school age kids, you can see that increase in anxiety. And then you have like the troublesome factor of like, young teens to older teens. It's very common for us at that young age to feel invincible and feel like nothing bad's going to happen to me. And that's why we see, teens are big risk takers. They want to, get a tattoo before they have like the judgment to know whether it's a good idea or not, that sort of thing. And so they may be more likely to have those feelings of like, this won't impact me, I won't get it. And so they may be struggling a lot with the social isolation and even like rebelling or leaving the home, which can be difficult for families, especially if they're at higher risk.
Is there anything specifically that Bigs can do to help alleviate these anxieties that the kids might be having? Should the Bigs be looking to have conversations specifically about coronavirus factors, or is that a conversation that should be left to the parents and the child?
I mean, I think it's important to talk to the parents and see what have they shared with their kids before you start a conversation so that the adults in their lives can be on the same page. I think that's really useful. I know that, where I work, we are doing that with our families, kind of checking in with them and seeing what have they told their kids so far about the coronavirus. And I think if parents are open to it, it's helpful to have a basic conversation about it, because I think information is power and it can really help alleviate a lot of fears around it. And then I think, there's a lot that that Bigs can do to support kids and teens during this time. If they're worried, sometimes just saying like, hey, I'm here with you, just being willing to listen to a child's concerns or a teen's concerns goes a really long way to help them feel supported. I think beginning there is a great first step. And then distraction. We all need distraction. We're not able to do as many things that we used to do. So, a lot of the platforms that we're all already using, like Zoom or, Google Hangouts, those sorts of things, they have lots of fun features where you can like share screens. So maybe a Big can like pull up a favorite music video, or you guys can like look at, kitten websites together, whatever, whatever your little's interests are, just to, have that fun distraction moment where you can laugh and enjoy each other is, important too. That being said, as a therapist, I also want to mention that if people are really concerned or they're seeing that kids are feeling so preoccupied with their worries or so sad that they should seek out help from a mental health professional.
Okay, yeah, that was my next question is what advice do you have for Bigs who are paired with littles who do not seem to be adjusting well to this period?
Yeah.
So your first advice would be to help them find a mental health professional?
Well, I think you have to kind of look at all the things that are going on. So one of the guidelines you can think about is my little feeling so sad or so worried that they're not engaging in their just regular everyday activities. So if they are feeling so worried or sad that they aren't, getting up out of bed, or they don't, brush their teeth, they're not willing to reach out to a friend to, talk on the phone, that's a sign that their concerns are bigger than, something that might just pass in a day or two. And it's worth either reaching out to their primary care physician or a therapist.
That's something obviously the Big would want to be in contact with the parent about.
Most definitely.
Yeah. And not just taking those steps for yourself.
Definitely. Yeah. I think, Bigs may get to hear a different side of how a child's feeling at times, especially depending on the age. Sometimes teens can feel more comfortable talking to their mentors about their feelings. And so I would say if a Big has any concerns, trying to bring the parent in so the three of them can talk together is probably the best way to go.
So would you say that abandoning normal routines and interests would be a major red flag that the child is not adjusting well to this period?
I think so, yeah. And it's going to, vary from child to child because all of our routines are disrupted, right? So parents may feel a little worried because kids are not wanting to do, or even teens are not wanting to do the same things that they used to do, which is normal to an extent. But I think if you are concerned as an adult, then it doesn't hurt to get a professional's advice and get some support there.
Yeah. When in doubt, go to the professionals,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So as you mentioned, all of our routines are kind of messed up right now because of this coronavirus. And we're all feeling the pressure, whether we're old or young. What advice would you have for Bigs who are experiencing their own troubles and it's maybe preventing them from staying present or motivated to progress the relationship?
I would say, first of all, know that they're not alone. I think everybody across the board is feeling a little more anxious, a little more preoccupied, and that can cause your motivation to do things to decrease. So, we're in a stressful time. So these are natural stress responses. The other thing I would say is that, as a therapist, we know when people are kind of down in the dumps or not feeling at their best, that there's a saying that says, action precedes motivation. And what that means is that you don't wait until you want to do something to do it, to feel better. You do something and then you feel better. And kind of the example we usually give is brushing your teeth, right? You don't wake up in the morning usually thinking like, I can't wait to brush my teeth, right? You do it and then you're glad you did it. And so I'd say, one, if you're a big that's feeling like it's hard to kind of get motivated to do something, just try to schedule it into your day, do it anyway, and check in and see if you feel better afterwards. Most likely you will. And it's just a good reminder to kind of stay connected to the things that we did before we were socially isolating to help us feel better. So whether that's talking to a friend or setting aside some time to like read a book or listen to music, drawing, whatever it is that you like to do, make sure that you're finding time to still do those things.
For bigs, if you have stuff that is centering you, you could even bring your little in on those things as well. Like you mentioned, drawing or something like that. It's easy to do. Stuff like that could be potentially fun to do over a Zoom meeting.
Absolutely. And I would say like with younger kids, there's lots of nice resources on YouTube where you can watch someone, and they're like professionals reading stories out loud. You could watch that together, via Zoom or another video conferencing app, and then have the kid like draw. You guys could each draw a picture of your favorite part, or what did you think was the silliest thing in the story, and then share your pictures. I have heard of, teens are doing like TikTok videos with their bigs, just being goofy, dancing, singing, karaoke, all that stuff. Laughter is sometimes the best medicine.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Becca Hadar. Next, we have Julius Johnson, a current big with Big Brothers Big Sisters of San Diego, where he shares about his own experience and provides some insight into how he and his little have managed the current situation. Okay, I'm here with Julius Johnson. He's a big involved in the Big Brothers Big Sisters program. Thanks for joining me, Julius.
Thanks for having me.
So let's just start this off by describing what a typical month with your little is like before the coronavirus and the lockdown started.
A typical month would probably be a couple check-ins throughout the week. And we would get together. We would make plans to get together that weekend, typically maybe every 2 weeks. We would do all kind of activities. Sometimes we would go out just to a park, have a walk, go paintballing, you name it, really. We've done a
So
lot.
typically, in a typical month, you might talk to each other, sounds like 6 or 7 times throughout the month, and then see each other 2 or 3 times?
I'd probably say we talk maybe 4 or 5. And we would spend a lot of time planning activities or just seeing how his week's been going, or if there's anything that just if he wanted just to sometimes release, just to talk. Sometimes even just being a listening ear is good.
How has the lockdown changed that? How have you had to pivot the relationship?
It's been a little different because, of course, you're unable to meet up as much as you would hope to, or as much as you were accustomed to. So we've been able to adjust. We've done maybe a couple of these Zoom meetings or just video chats. And I try to make a point to at least call once a week just to check on him, see how he's doing, because he's in a different location now. And I know that it can be challenging, not being able to be around your friends and, just having your normal routine disrupted at that age it can be a deterrent sometimes. Yeah. So.
Was there specific aspects of this lockdown that your little seems to be having more difficulty with?
I think being able to, for one, of course, see his friends every day, kind of feeling confined, to the 4 walls. And then there was a point where his mom and him were going to go to San Francisco. And she had brought it up that he was feeling nervous about the situation, really anxious, because the safety of going from San Diego to San Francisco, it worried him. He didn't want he or his mom to get sick. So that was probably the roughest period for him. I think probably even rougher than missing his friends.
Oh, wow. Is the coronavirus a conversation? Do you guys talk about that? Is that a conversation that you kind of bring up with him? And if so, like, what does that conversation look like?
So during that time period that he was about to go up to San Francisco, he's up there now. I remember she called me and asked me about being able to speak with him because he was really in a anxious and I guess unsettled mindset about the transition. And I was able just to be there to help him through it, to reassure him that, you know, his mom was making the necessary steps and taking the necessary precautions to protect them both on their journey up there. His main concern, of course, safety, you know, not contracting the virus. And just pretty much reassured him that, you know, just to trust his mom, to be strong for her and for himself, and that it's okay. It's okay to embrace that fear, you know, to embrace that nervousness or that anxiety, but don't let it conquer you. You know, just work through it, take a couple breaths, recollect yourself. And, you know, I told him if he ever needed to talk on his way up there or anything, just feel free to call me. And I called him and checked in on him. How
old is your little?
Oh, he's 12 years old. No, he's 13, but he's tall. he's taller than me. I'm 5'7". He's like almost 6 foot. So.
How long have you guys been matched together?
It's going on 2 years now, almost.
Nice.
It'll be 2 years in January, so about a year and a half.
So you'd probably say that this is the most difficult time of that 2 years for the match?
Definitely, because I've gotten so accustomed to being able to see him. I think it's probably harder for me than it is for him. But, you know, I've gotten accustomed to seeing him. It's like a breath of fresh air, you know, a break from my normal busy day-to-day life, just to be refreshed of that childlike heart and that I guess you could say that innocence of, you know, being young.
What are some of the like favorite activities you've been doing together now during the virtual?
He enjoys playing video games, so
nice.
he plays a lot of Spider-Man, so I'll watch him play that every so often. But truthfully, I mean, just being able just to reconnect.
Yeah.
You know, I enjoy having conversations with him, just seeing where his mind is at, making sure that he's okay, but just being able to hear from him is probably my favorite activity, I guess you could say.
Nice. Yeah, that's great. Are you guys using Zoom, I imagine, to get some face-to-face time?
Yeah, we've used Zoom, I think maybe once. Yeah, and then I think the last time that we did it, I don't know if I used like Duo.
Okay. These video platforms have been clutch for you, it sounds like, just like it's been for me.
Yeah, and it's crazy because I usually don't necessarily use video chats as much, but of course with everything that's been going on, it's been a great tool to be able to reconnect with family as well, and being able just to, you know, I guess strengthen those bonds during this time.
Yeah. Do you think that the use of video platforms in the future will be something you'll take advantage of even after the lockdown has ended?
Oh, certainly. I never really used it as much as I do now. I guess, you know, for whatever reason, whether it's scheduling or something, but just being able to see my niece and nephews, being able to see Kenyon and, you know, catch up with family it's been good.
Yeah.
So I would definitely use them more.
Kenyon is your little?
Yeah, Kenyon is my little.
No worries. Do you feel as though you're still able to achieve that connection with him through video conferencing?
I think it's a good way to still achieve the connection. Of course, it can never replace the actual physical aspect of being able to hang out together. and interact and doing activities and things like that. But it's a good substitute during this time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're so lucky, I feel like, to have this going on in an age where we have access to the internet. Like, imagining this right now without the internet is terrifying.
It would definitely be different. I remember, being young and, when we didn't have video chats and things. And of course, you spend hours on the phone and it's like, you're only either waiting for the phone to die or your mom to tell you to get off the phone. So yeah, video chats have been pretty cool.
I think, everyone, you maybe included, myself for sure, we're still dealing with this, like trying to acclimate to it, this temporary reality that we're living in. What kind of advice do you have from your own experience for other bigs who are looking to strengthen their connection and kind of make the most of this bad situation?
Stay consistent. That's probably my number one thing, staying consistent. And sometimes it can be challenging. You can get, even with the quarantine, you can still get caught up in day-to-day things, or create a routine for yourself. But staying consistent is probably the number one advice that I would give. And be creative. If you guys have to like set up a Zoom where you work out together, just doing push-ups and sit-ups and, things like that, or play a video game or watch a movie together, or, just things like that. Just be creative and stay consistent.
Yeah. Cool. Well, that's all the questions I have for you, Julius. Is there anything you'd like to add about your experience or your thoughts on the whole situation?
Yeah. Just everyone stay positive. This will pass. Just try to make the most of the time that you do have. Stay consistent. And thank you again for the opportunity of doing this.
Yeah, I appreciate your time, Julius. It was good to hear from another big about their experience for this, for sure. Well, thank you for listening to the EW podcast, and thank you to all three of my guests for joining me. If you'd like to learn more about Big Brothers Big Sisters San Diego, you can visit sdbigs.org or find them on social media at sdbigs. You can also find the EW podcast on social media, specifically Instagram. Please follow along at the EW podcast. You'll find updates on future episodes and other things going on in my own personal journey. So thank you again, and we'll see you next time.